How is that? I don't think it's going to make it louder for you if it's closer, but moving the speaker will. Do we have a speaker that's, could it be turned towards, oh, it's over there? Is there one on this side too? Okay. I will speak loudly. You're very welcome. Microphone turned. I think this is turned off a few times, or I might not have been paying attention. Is that better? Great. Okay, so to repeat, in terms of attendance, we have Gina Groff has been excused from this meeting, and we will move on to the approval of minutes from the past meeting. Is there a motion to approve? Shane? Is there a second? Ellen? Any discussion, amendments, thoughts? Okay, all in favor of the minutes as presented, please raise your hand. All against? All abstentions? Thank you very much. The minutes pass. I have two items of just follow-up business. The first one is that as per the last meeting where Dan Coakley asked that correspondence be put into the record, you should have received a copy via email, and I have the copy that should be appended to the minutes that can be passed down to Pat, which should resolve that particular outstanding item. I also have a resignation from the committee to report. Michelle Brunchak has communicated that she has conflicts that prevent her from being able to attend, and so she is resigning reluctantly from the committee. She wishes us the best, we wish her the best, and hope to see her again in public service as soon as her schedule can allow. Would you be willing to talk about the process for filling the empty space?
First of all, you need a motion to accept.
Okay. Motion to accept the resignation. What happens if it is not accepted?
Well, the good news is that you forwarded it to me as the clerk, and the clerk of the district can certainly accept the resignation as well.
Okay. So do we need a motion? Okay.
I just wanted to say that if we don't accept a resignation, it's held in abeyance. And we struggle with it until we decide what it is we're going to do about it.
Okay.
That could be nothing, or it could be what I hope we're about to do. I make a motion that we solicit the community for a vacant position.
Do you accept her resignation? I think we do a motion to accept the resignation first, right?
Let's make it nice and tidy since it came up and do a motion to accept the resignation.
Okay, I'll move that we accept the resignation.
Okay. We have a second from Lee. Any discussion?
I didn't interrupt you.
I
All
got
those in
carried away.
favor? Raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. So that passes, and again, with great thanks for her joining us. I think that with that, we move on to the year-end review with Matt Chevenel, the business
Did
administrator.
you want to
Point of
discuss
order,
the-
Yes.
I would like to make a motion that we advertise our vacancy for the consideration of the community to be interviewed and fill the position.
Thank you very much, Chuck. Yes. Can we have a second to that motion, please?
I'll make a second.
Thank you. Discussion? And now, Pat, if you are willing, could you speak to the process as to how that is advertised and done?
We actually send out, we'll put it on Facebook, we'll put it on the school district website, we'll put it on cable, and we will advertise in both the Union Leader and the Telegraph.
Mhm.
We just need a date when you're going to interview candidates and sort of an end date for when letters come in. Letters go into the superintendent's office, and actually several of you, as I look around the table,
Went
know
through
this
this
process
process.
because you've been involved in it.
Mhm.
But that's, what?
Mhm.
Actually, yes, we were hoping this year was going to be, but she said something at the last meeting, so she's the one that jinxed it.
I jinxed it, yes. I absolutely did.
But the
Mhm.
letters come
Anytime.
in, and then you all get copies of the letters, and we invite the candidates to come in and speak to us. We do have one meeting that is scheduled in December,
Mhm.
on December 12th, I believe it is. Is that enough time? It's less than a month, but,
I should think
and there's
it
a
is.
holiday in the middle of it, but if that's fine, then we'll
Is the
say that the,
committee general consensus that that's fine? Yes, let's set that for then.
Okay,
What
we-
is a typical timeframe for cutting off the letter receiving before the meeting?
well, bearing in mind that the holiday is in the middle of this, we could certainly say that the letters are due by the 8th, which is the week before. And then usually what happens is that the chairman just contacts them and says, hi, we're inviting you. We also put in the advertisement that candidates will be interviewed on that date, so that they're aware of that as well. So this
Okay.
isn't a surprise all the way around.
Sounds
But then, that's the night we have the school board and the superintendent talking about the budget, and we can interview candidates before or after if you like.
Sounds good. Chuck?
I have such a high regard for my colleagues here. I'm sure that they must have friends of the same character and skill set, that if you know of anybody that you think would be a good candidate, and you might encourage them to submit a letter of inquiry.
Any other thoughts or discussion? Okay, so the motion is to solicit interested parties for an appointment and to have, may I suggest for the friendly amendment to add the dates to the motion? That we'll see it on the 12th and speak to them on the 12th? Okay, thank you. It was your motion, hence checking with you on it. Okay. So let's close that piece. All in favor, please raise your hand or indicate. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the motion passes, and I look forward to meeting our new colleagues soon. Okay, have I forgotten anything else? We're good. Okay, Matt, back to you. Matthew Chevenel, Business Administrator. You have two items on the business. One is the year-end review, and one is the first quarter review. Feel free to take it however, in whatever order you see fit.
Thank you. My title officially is Assistant Superintendent for Business. I have two certifications from the DOE. One's Assistant Superintendent and one is Business Administrator. So as a mashup, customarily we do Assistant Superintendent for Business. So that's
Duly
the
noted.
official title.
Thank you very much.
This year, 22-23, have to tell you, there's the ripple effects from COVID and the COVID years have still followed us on into 22-23 as we closed out things. We had a surplus. It wasn't as large as the 21-22 surplus. That was around $8.2 million. This is around $6.2 million. So it's a little bit less by a couple of $1 million. We still had a lot of staff turnover. We had around 111 staff turnover in the last year, in that 22-23 staff year, which is probably one of the highest ones, even given the fact of the COVID years, too. So there's still the ripple effect. There's still difficulty, and the great job that Melissa Fazlick and everybody in HR does is recruiting qualified staff, highly qualified staff for our school system. You know, we're pretty much on target with teachers now. We are still short probably around 28 paraprofessionals now, and we are still short probably around 10 to 12 to even more custodians. With the custodians, we've had to go to a contracted service provider, and we get the approval from the support staff union to do that because we absolutely needed them to clean the buildings here. So we contracted with Citywide. And we took all their employees when we ran them through background checks. So that's when we go through this, you'll see the number of background checks we did. Not the number, but the amount of money we spent on background checks is kind of inflated because we had to port all those people through the system. So we did have a $4 million, almost $5 million appropriation surplus, and we had a $1.8 million revenue surplus. Revenues, we always want to budget on the conservative side because there have been some instances when you're budgeting stuff like catastrophic aid, and the DOE will tell you you're going to get $900,000, and then when all of a sudden the check comes, it's $700,000. And you don't want to put yourself in that type of position, and we usually get a lot of input from the New Hampshire School Administration Association. Used to be Mark Joyce years ago, Dr. Mark Joyce. I don't know if you're familiar with that name. He used to kind of let us know how much, even though the DOE is saying you're going to get 98% of what you bargained for, sometimes the advice from him would be, I would budget 70% because that's what we're hearing on the State House level. So it's one of those things where it's kind of an art form. It's not, it's numbers, it's reality, it's everything like that, but you have to know how to play it so you don't get caught short. And on the revenues, I might as well, I'm talking about that, I might as well skip down to that. We've got more Medicaid reimbursements that we had planned for because we're always conservative over that. And then we got a rebate of around $350,000 from the New Hampshire retirement system. The Hampshire retirement system has been a system that has fluctuated greatly over the years, primarily because of a lack of having school districts and towns and police departments and highway departments and everything like that really not contribute as much as they should have during a good 10 to 15 year period during the 80s when the economy was booming and we thought life was going to be good and it would last forever and the train would never end. That was a mistake. Everybody now knows it was a mistake. I knew it back then when I was working for a town back in the 90s that, you know, when we're only putting like 3% of the town's resources towards police retirement, now I think it's like 35, 40%. That's not a good thing to do. You don't want to rely on those investments to carry on into perpetuity. So I think they revised their model from a 5-year look back to like a 3-year look back to kind of try and catch the recent trends. And there's been a lot of turnover in that area, the New Hampshire retirement system, as far as who is the director of the retirement system and how it's managed and how the actuaries actually calculate what the percentages should be. But the employees over the years, they used to collect on our end, 5% of my gross income would go towards the retirement. We voluntarily kicked that up to 7% in order to ensure that the retirement system would maintain its solvency into the future. It's pretty good right now, and those rates should remain not constant. They're going to go up, but we shouldn't have like a 30% increase in New Hampshire retirement. We shouldn't have those types of things. So them giving us back this $345,000 was curious to me. It's like, why don't you keep it? Why don't you pile it away for a rainy day to offset those peaks and valleys so we don't have sticker shock? And it affects us, it affects the police department, it affects the fire department, it affects everything. And it's become a larger and larger portion of our overall operating budget, that expenditure. So that's one thing that was kind of a, it was a savings because we couldn't hire as many people as we wanted, or we had the staff turnover that had people coming in at a much lower rate than before. We had a lot of people who left us, went to other higher paying districts, even with this is before the teacher contract was passed. This is when maybe the first one was done, and now we followed it up with a second teacher contract to get us on an somewhat even playing field with area districts, and that's important. You've got to maintain competitive in your marketplace. I know you look at the news, you look at Andover, Massachusetts, they've been on strike for the past X amount of years. You know, when you look at them, they're asking for like a 30% increase for instructional assistants and a 28% increase for teachers over like a 3-year period. Well, there was a time in the history of Merrimack where our contracts are so low, where we had a 7% a year increase for 3 years teacher contract that passed. So that's 21% over 3 years. People go, oh my goodness. But we were so far behind area school district, we couldn't we couldn't attract and maintain and retain those really high quality teachers. What we did is we became if you want to get into the field, come to Merrimack, get your training, spend your 3 years, get your tenure, and get out and go work for Bedford or Amherst or another community that's going to pay you much higher. So that's one of the things where, you know, it's a savings, but it's something that we're going to be looking at in the future to kind of put that appropriation down a little bit to be more realistic, but you don't really know until your staff levels out how it's going to play out. And it's tough when you've got 28 paras, 10 custodians, a bunch of food service people that aren't here. They would normally get benefits, and then you're trying to prognosticate what your benefits are going to cost you, but you have to do that with those positions in mind, and you don't know what those positions are going to be. Are they going to be single people? They're going to be 2 people? They're going to be family plans, et cetera. You have no clue. So you try and do the best you can. And so, you know, there was a savings. There was you know, the health insurance, benefits, everything like that, the retirement system, FICA, Medicare, because you're not paying out all those wages. But the good thing is it goes back to reduce taxes. So the next piece is, you know, maintenance. We had a little bit overage in maintenance, a little bit under savings in maintenance, basically because of the roof job that we did came in under bid. So that's part of it. You look at special education, there was an overage around $364,000. That was because we couldn't get paras, so we had to contract out IEP assistants. So we did those through a various service to take care of the needs of the kids so they wouldn't go without, obviously. And we have to legally, through the letter of the law, maintain the integrity of the IEPs and providing I love to say this, a free and appropriate public education in the least restrictive environment possible. So that's the law. We have to. So we went out and we got contractors to come in. We'd rather have our own people do this, but they just weren't there. So, and especially at food service, you know, the starting wage for a food service server is like $13 an hour. No one's taking those jobs. We haven't had a custodian walk through the door and apply for a job in over 2 years. It's that bad. So we're in the middle of, and I can't say too much because we're in the middle of negotiations with the support staff, but we're looking to correct that, kind of like what we did with the teachers. We did a 1-year contract, we did a percentage increase, we did a $950,000 wage adjustment for them. There was 2 warrant articles and they both passed, and then we came back around with a good 3-year deal. So at the end of that 3rd year, we're going to be in pretty good shape, I think, to attract people that we can be competitive with. Legal was a little bit high. We had a lot of incidents going on that we had to take care of. That's a little bit out of our control. The rest of it is basically just regular expenditures, a little bit higher here, a little bit lower there. Hard to predict because you're doing this, 18 months in advance of actually operationalizing the budget, and it's kind of hard to figure out exactly what you're going to buy. You see some budgets, some communities and some school districts, they name that they're going to buy 250 number 2 pencils for the 2nd grade classroom and whatever. And that's just smoke and mirrors. That's not reality, because those 250 pencils can turn into something totally different once you get into the school year. And so that basically, the appropriation surplus was like 4.9. The revenue surplus, due to those couple of items that I did mention, was around 1.8. So they gave us 6.7. Now, you're going to see something on the first page, total retained fund balance, $500,000. A couple of years ago, the school district put up, and the legislative body passed a warrant article to allow the school district to retain up to 5% of their net assessed valuation in surplus. And in order to spend such, we have to go in front of the school board, give them a full accounting of what we're going to spend it on and how we're going to spend it, and it's all public record. It's all done at a regular board meeting. And I was talking to Bill, the superintendent, about this, because this was our first chance to really kind of do that. And we didn't want to get too aggressive, because you can also use this for tax rate stabilization. Because I know next year the 6.2 is probably going to look like 4.2. So you want to have that little bit of reserve to open up the floodgates of the dam when you have to. And as a town, when I worked for town government for 8 years, and I was debating upon, I was offered a job as a town manager a long time ago. It's water under the bridge. I chose to go with the school district, and I'm very glad I did that. But you had the ability to do that throughout my history as being a town. You could regulate your tax rate because you could retain surplus. I think the town probably has around $7 million retained in surplus, and they use it for tax rate stabilization, number one, and they use it in case they don't collect all the money on the tax bill warrant. Back in the days when the economy was really bad, if you booked a warrant, you didn't expect to collect 100% of it. You'd probably collect 70% of it. And what that did is that left you cash poor. You had a hard time meeting your obligations to the school district and to everybody else. And so they'd have to take out tax anticipation notes. I remember those days, tax anticipation notes, which when you do that, what it does is it decreases your borrowing power as far as your bond rating. It doesn't show that you have your house in order. It doesn't show that you can really meet your obligations. So the people at Moody's and all the other firms who do the bond ratings, they kind of downgrade you a little bit. So if you want to take out a bond, let's say when we did the middle school bond, we had like AAA, ratings. We were awesome. We got a good rate. When we did the ventilation project, I don't know if you guys remember the ventilation project. It started out at $400,000 to take care of a few rooms, and before I know it, I don't know if you were on the board, Naomi, at the time. And were you?
For the first part, yes.
Yeah, and all of a sudden it turned into a $4 million lease purchase agreement. And I'm sitting there going, wow, this is really kind of interesting. And so we did a lot more. We put in around 76 unit ventilators into the school systems, which help with the CO2 levels. When CO2 rises in a classroom, it has a tendency to make you less focused, a little bit sleepy, maybe you get a headache. In other words, it's not conducive to learning. So that's a direct consequence of seeing that the school environment, the physical plant facilities, and the environment can directly affect teaching and learning. And so that was one of the things that we put in, but we got a 1.9% interest rate on that over 10 years, which is like awesome because we had a good rating, because we can meet our obligations. So having a surplus is not a bad thing. There's some folk that like to think you should spend that thing right down to the penny and give back nothing. Well, then you're teetering on the brink of disaster, because no one wants to go in front of the voters with a supplemental appropriation to fund a deficit appropriation. That's not a good look. That's not where we want to be. I've never been there. And that's why we have certain safeguards in place. And this retainage of fund balance can be used in one of two ways. I didn't want to go in the first quarter review, but I'll do that later because I'm kind of on a train of thought here. I don't know if any of you guys have driven around this town at all and looked at all the developments that are going up. I mean, I have. Bill has. I was just up on Chestnut Hill near the middle school. I think there's 76 lots that are being worked on right now. These are not small houses. These are 3-car garage homes. Those types of houses, and we don't really have a lot of experience with what to expect coming out of that development because there's still a lot that are under construction. But customarily, houses in that price range bring kids into the, let's say, grade 6, middle school, early high school years. So we could be looking at an increase in enrollments in that area. We are also looking at an increase, we have an increase in enrollments in the elementary schools in the younger grades. Reed's Ferry Elementary School had a kindergarten class this year that was 40 more kids more than we have ever expected before. I remember I was talking to Bill, I was talking to Julie, I was talking to Michelle, these are the principals, and I was talking to Bonnie, and everybody was comparing numbers. And now, as far as kindergarten goes, Reed's Ferry is almost bigger than Thornton's Ferry, and Thornton's Ferry was always the bigger school. And I says, Bonnie, are you serious? Tell me, give me a list of these kids. We just couldn't believe it. And there was an influx of people in a certain part of the community who came in. And there's a lot of ESOL going on, so we're going to look at addressing that in the next coming budget, and so which was a total surprise. Now our question is that going to happen again? And usually when kindergarten, if you got 120 kids in kindergarten, that's going to equate to like 136 in first grade, because Bill likes to say this phrase, and I love when he uses it all the time. The cohort survival rate is like 1.04 or something like that, of kindergarten going into first grade. There's always a bump up. So with such a large enrollment in kindergarten, that's got to translate into a higher first grade numbers at Reed's. So we're going to be adding some more teachers at the elementary school level to offset that. But in case we get totally surprised, again, this is going to be a fund that we have set aside that will approach the board if we need any extra staff that's not budgeted for, and we'll ask them to transfer the money from one line to another line so we could take care of those needs. But the fluctuation in enrollment based upon the really amazing growth in this community, and it's attracting people. It's just not the apartments. It's just not the new developments. This is the new development right up the street from Reed's. Level Acres, it's called. It's right on Pearson Road, past Reed's Ferry Elementary School. It's probably around 40 houses there. But the Chestnut Hill subdivision, there's like 76 of them, and they're big houses. I think the ones around Reed's are probably going to attract elementary school kids to Reed's Ferry School, but the ones that are in the middle school area are probably going to wind up at the middle school. The middle school enrollment's probably running around maybe 500, 550 right now. It still has a capacity for 800 kids, so we have space there, which is a good thing, because it was built for a core capacity of 1,000 kids. Core meaning, how big is your gym? How many bathrooms do you have? How big is your library? Those are core facilities. So the core was built for 1,000, but the school was designed for 800. But there's always the ability to put an addition on that school, and it's an easy addition. It's already been planned for if we need it. So we have a lot of flexibility, and we're looking at a lot of different areas of what to do. And we're not necessarily going to do this in 24, 25, but we may come up with something creative in 25, 26 in order to take care of that. Remember when we did the grade realignments with the middle school? You had grades 6, 7, and 8 in the old middle school, which was J. Muse, and then we pulled all the 5th graders out of the elementary schools. We put them into the middle school, and we created the 5, 6 upper elementary school. That gave room in the elementary schools to accept more kids. It just took those kids out of the JMU's, the old middle school, which was 33% over capacity, put them in a brand-new middle school. So it created a lot of opportunity and it allowed us to put in kindergarten. Because without that, we wouldn't have had the physical classrooms in order to put in kindergarten. So, it's budgeting, it's numbers, but it's also planning that goes along with those numbers. And there's a lot of unknown unknowns that we do have. And we're just trying to make sure that when those decisions need to be made, we have the assets at hand to take care of it and do it the proper way the first time. I don't want to go back to putting portables on the front lawn, although that wasn't a bad stopgap measure back in the day because it was needed because that old middle school was over capacity by 33%. We had to do something. But I think we should look at a more long-range plan with this. And Bill's really good about, demographics and everything, and he's dealing with the town. He's talking to them about building permits and what you expect. And, what's coming in with, let's say, the Slate apartment buildings near the outlet malls. We got around 3 kids coming out of there, but that's today. What's going to happen in a couple of years? I see more kids coming out of that apartment complex. Once they build it out and they put the amenities in there that they had promised to do, as opposed to just building housing and then leaving, there's supposed to be shops, restaurants, everything like that going into that area. So that's something that we want to make sure that we have the financial resources to deal with without going back to the voters mid-year or anything like that, or going into a deficit appropriation. So essentially, last year was like 8.2, this year it's 6.2. And that's one of the things that our normal surplus before COVID was around $3.5 million every single year. But because of the shifting tide in personnel and everything like that, it's just been a little bit more. But we've been giving that back to reduce the tax rate. And this year, we gave back $2 million less because last year it was 8.2. So that's a little factor that the budget didn't go up all that much, but because we didn't have the surplus that we did the prior year, there's a little bit of a spike. Now, if we would have had the warrant article to retain surplus the previous year or the year before that, we could have grabbed that money and then used it for when this dip came in to kind of offset the dip and cushion the blow. But we have to start somewhere, so we're starting off on at $500,000. When I was talking to Michelle Clark from the Department of Revenue Administration, we were going over this. She said one district, because we have the ability, 5% of our net assessment is like around $2.5 million. So we could go up to $2.5 million if we wanted to retain that. And I was joking around with Michelle. I says, no, I think I want to work here for a few more years. I'm not going that route. But she did tell me of one district who left like $13 to reduce taxes, and they took the rest and they retained it. And I says, okay, I'll be watching for that in the papers, because that's not a good political move. You don't want to do that. So we just wanted to be conservative to see what we could take care of. If we can use it for tax rate stabilization, it's $500,000, it'll do something. Or if we need it for additional positions, we'll go to the school board, we'll ask their permission, and we'll present our cases, and we'll present our numbers. We're still doing our enrollment projections right now, and it's still a little bit in flux, but we've got a pretty good handle on it right now. We just have to, the toughest thing is to peg what's coming in for kindergarten. Are we going to get another big class at Reed's Ferry in kindergarten? That's what remains to be seen. And you're not going to know that until the registrations come in the spring. You're not going to know that. And we know that the first grade is going to be big, so we're going to be starting looking at larger classes. And I remember saying like 15 years ago, we're going to go into a period of enrollments that are going to be level or declining for like 10 years. At the time, I was just kind of making that up because I thought it was a good thing to say. But no, seriously, that's what I was thinking. And then at some point, building is going to turn around, and we're going to start to climb. So I think in the next 5, 6, 7 years, back in 03, 04, we had 5,000 kids. We got 3,800 now. I see us in the next 5 years going back to 5,000 kids, one way or another. And we have to decide as a district how we want to handle that and how we want to plan for that in the long run. So a lot of this is, the budget and the surplus and everything like that, but it's future planning and taking a long, hard look at where we've been, what our history has been, looking at all the building that's going on, and realizing that things are going to change, and they're going to change, I think, a little bit quicker because there's such a demand for housing right now. Pardon me. And especially if you go down, the closer to Massachusetts you get, you go around the Boston area, you can't find anything. That's why people are migrating up here. So this is the new sweet spot. I think Merrimack is the real sweet spot to be in at this point in time. So it's an attractive community, and it's going to be growing. Some people don't like growth. Well, if it's managed and it's managed well, it can be a real asset to your community. So we think it's something to look forward to. One of Chuck's Werther's over here, so yeah, I know. So I just swallowed wrong. So food service was looking good. We had a $300,000 surplus from last year. It pretty much carried over until next year. With the $300,000 surplus in food service, it was basically because of the reimbursements we get from the federal government when they were doing their big push during COVID. We got more money from them per meal than we charged. So we actually gained a surplus. But that's good because Dave Zicki has a lot of equipment and freezers that have to be replaced. We replaced one over the summer this year. That's a good $50,000 hit right there. There's a lot. He was talking about we were talking with Bill, and Dave was there. We're going over his budget. The gas stoves in J. Muse, they're original equipment. It's like, I didn't know stuff lasted that long anymore. But that was a while ago, but when they knew how to build something. We're buying a new washing machine and a dryer, and they're only like 10 years old. It's like my mother-in-law had a dryer and a washing machine that was 30 years old that I wish I still had. It'd still be going. So things like that, they don't last anymore like they used to, but that one has lasted a very long time. So we're going to be looking at using that surplus to replace some of his equipment. And it's of no increase, it's no impact of the taxes, because food service is one of those pass-through accounts. The first quarter expendeds are on page 23 and all the details there. We're at around 30% through the first quarter, which is kind of on track. One would expect 25%, but that doesn't happen that way. It never does, because there are certain things that you pay up front. It's just the way it is. So that's really nothing unexpected. But there's one thing I want to go over is on the last page, on page 41. See how I'm shifting you guys all around, and I'm just kind of going and going, right?
We've done this before.
I do that every year. Yeah, I know. But this is a working draft. We presented a draft of this to the Planning and Building Committee, and we have to come around back and get their approval of this before it goes anywhere. But I figured I'd just kind of give you guys a little insight as to what is going on and what you may be seeing in the budget next year. Just because it's in the CIP doesn't mean it's necessarily going to wind up in the budget, but a few items will. We're looking at another roof. We want to keep our roof program going. We are so close, probably the next 5 or 6 years, that we're going to get a break of around 10 years without having to do anything to roofs. Because the new roofs we've been putting on have like a 35-year warranty, no more 10-year roofs, no more swimming pool liners up on the top floor, none of that. We buy quality stuff. We buy it from certified contractors who are the best in the business, and it's much easier on everybody to spend a little bit more to get a roof that's guaranteed by the manufacturer, and the manufacturer certifies the installers and is on site during the installation supervising what the installers are doing. So when you have a problem, there's none of these, it's the installer's fault, it's the manufacturer's fault. They can't blame one another because they've both been on site. So that takes the guesswork out of these warranties. And we've had to use it a couple of times, and it works seamlessly. So when you have a 35-year warranty, you know, when I say when we do this portion of the roof, I will never be back in front of you to talk about another section of that roof on that school ever again, you know. It's just a good thing. We have, going down just the 24-25, you're more than likely going to see some window replacements at the upper elementary school. We have around 32, is it 32? Yeah, 32 windows at JMU's that basically, I want to go back to that Window World commercial that I see all the time. We don't have a case of sash gap, but we got a case of sash rot. Some of the metal has little pinholes in it that you can see, and there is rust going on, and there's air infiltration, and it's just, we have to just do those. The fortunate part is, with these windows, there's no asbestos caulking around them, so we don't have to worry about that. Because every time Tom comes to me and says, we have to replace a window, it's like, okay, I got to add an extra $3,000 to remove the asbestos caulking, because it has to be done in a remediation format. Guys with spacesuits on, everything's, you know, just cordoned off. Air is brought in from the outside. I mean, it's an ordeal and it's a big expense. So we're looking at window replacements. We have the technology infrastructure improvement line that'll be in Jason Pelletier, our tech director's budget, that you're going to see. That's just to keep up with what we started a long time ago, with the one-to-one devices and with the constant review of all our closets and our switches and our routers and everything like that. I mean, we have switches that pretty close to being out of warranty from Cisco. And you wouldn't believe the amount of gear that we have in this building. It's astronomical. But compare that to private industry, it's probably not that astronomical. But for us, it is. When I think back when we first built the network, I never thought it would grow to be of such magnitude, but I never thought we'd be relying on this network as much as we do. If Power School goes down, it's the end of the world. I mean, we can't have any of our systems go down. It used to be everybody liked to keep their grade book on a piece of paper and a pencil and whatnot, and they fought us tooth and nail to transition over to the grade book in Power School. But now everybody is of a mind, if we don't have this, oh my gosh, what are we going to do, you know? So we have to keep these systems up and running. We're looking, you know, climate in a building and how it affects kids is something that is really, we've been trying to address. And because of the configuration of our building and the structural nature of our building, without having enough room between the ceiling joists and the floor joist of the top of the roof joist, there's not enough room for ductwork, so we have to do these split systems. And it's the easiest way and the most cost-effective way, but it's the slowest way of putting air conditioning in a building. And we're attacking those rooms where we know special needs kids are going to be, where we know we have medical fragile kids, where we know we have to take care of them, both for staff purposes and mainly for student purposes. So we're looking at that. So We put in 12 into the system. We did have a plan for this over the years, but then we got away from it for a couple of years during the COVID thing because we were trying to be, really frugal and everything like that. And frugal just kind of pushes off the inevitable, and it winds up costing more in the end anyway. So we're back on the horse with trying to get critical areas in each school identified and taken care of. And hopefully, if we do this for a few more years, we'll be able to do that. This is kind of a new one, the locker rooms at the high school, the girls' locker room and the boys' locker room. They need some attention. Maybe at some point in time, the board or the budget committee or whoever can take a tour down there. They're not something to be, it doesn't look like the Patriots, okay? It's not even close. It's something that needs to be addressed. The locker rooms aren't in a good situation. So we want to take a look at that, but we're not sure how much it's going to cost. I need an architect and an engineer to come in to do a redesign and do a sketch and give us an idea of what we could do for ventilation, what we could do to make the accommodations more modern looking. These are not modern looking locker rooms or even close to that. The next couple of items to talk to one of the main points in the upcoming budget, and been for a lot of years, our main focus has been security, safety and security. This may or may not show up in the budget because every opportunity we get, we look to get grant monies from the state. And the state just advertised a $10 million Safe School grants available to us. So we're looking to, I've already put in the grant to increase on the number of our security cameras and to take care of some of our lock sets. We did these are the classroom door lock sets that we have. They're functional, but some of them need to be replaced because they're so old. We actually had Mike Dumais, the Assistant Facilities Director, go through every single door in every single part of the world of this district and do a massive spreadsheet. And we've collected all the information, and we have a quote from a vendor that we've dealt with for a while, but we'll put it out to bid. And so that's in the grant, but if it's not in the grant, it may be in the budget, but I'm not going to know in time to build the budget whether or not it's accepted. I had a deadline of, October 1st to get it done. At 10 a.m., the grant was open. It was first come, first served basis. So I'm sitting there, tense, sweat coming down my brow. At 9:59, is it open? Is it open? Is it open? I had all my stuff ready to rip once that thing was open. And it was like, when you get the thing, it's first come, first served basis. That's a little bit different, I thought it would be maybe need-based or project-based or something like that, but it was kind of like, get in line and storm the Bastille of the Department of Ed and see what you can get. But even though it was first come, first serve, you would think they could turn it around real quick, right? If I got in at 10:05, I should get the money, right? Which I did. But it's going to take 2 or 3 months for them to sort that out. So it's not going to be in time for the budget. So we'll see what happens. We're hopeful. And then, of course, you've got your SAU office, which we're starting to promote. Well, let's be honest, we've been talking about this ever since I got here. When I first got here, it was $500,000. Then it changed to $1 million. Then it changed to $1.5 million. That was in 2013. 2013, we put it up for a vote, right, Pat? And we had to get 60% because it was a bond issue. And we lost by, we lost by 60 votes. 60 votes we lost by. It's like when we first did the middle school, we had 3 bites at the apple. First time we lost by 30 votes. Second time we lost by 3. Third time, landslide victory. So once we put it up at 1.5 million and we lost by 60, we never came back again. Because you never pass a bond issue the first time out. Anybody who has been in this business for more than 10 years will tell you that, and who's been through a bond issue. Never the first time out, unless things are so horrifically bad that you have no other choice. So we needed to come back. We didn't come back, but that's okay. Times have changed. There are certain circumstances that we look at and we wonder, why didn't that happen? Well, there's a lot of underlying undercurrent that gives you the answer to that if you know where to look. And so there's no blame, there's nothing going on here. It's just now's the time to put it back up again. And I had mentioned on the town center committee and a couple other committees, this building's going to come in at a particular cost. It's going to be more than the $3 million that we had the last time that never went anywhere because of the price of materials, goods and services, everything like that has risen astronomically. It's kind of leveled off a little bit after COVID, but that ratchet inflation, once it hits, it doesn't really go down. So it's going to be one of these things where we're in a good opportunity to take advantage of the middle school being paid off in 24, 25. It's paid off now. We own it. I got the original bond issue with a big stamp on it that said paid in full. And so what we're going to do is we have an $800,000 savings from the bond issue for the middle school that we could apply that savings and still save money by floating a bond for a new central office if the district budget committee, voters, legislative body gives us the go-ahead. So it's the opportune time that 10 years ago I was looking at that saying that'd be a really good time, but can it wait 10 years? Well, I guess it has waited 10 years. But now is a great time to take advantage of that reduction in the amount in our budget to float another bond to get this done. And first year out, you're looking at an interest payment only of like $157,000. Then if you want to go 15 years, you're looking at a high payment of $500,000. So you're still saving $300,000 even in the second year. Not saving, but you're not spending the money that was previously budgeted. So it's a good time to go ahead and do it if we are of a mind to do it. We have the site. Everybody noticed the vacant piece of land that used to be Brentwood. I want to thank the school board. You don't know how badly I want to thank the school board for allowing the administration to take down the Brentwood building that was purchased basically for the land and its proximity to the campus of Merrimack High School and Merrimack School District. It wasn't purchased because it was a good building. It was I don't want to talk poorly about a guy named Jack, but it was the house that Jack built. It had so many different quirks and strange things going on. None of the HVAC systems worked. The roof was it was bad. It was just there was no way to renovate that building into a central office. There were people who have a mindset we could just buy the building, walk right into it, and ta-da, there's your central office. That was never the case. I remember going through with the Planning and Building Committee. I remember going through with some board members. I don't know, Chuck, I think you might have been there too. And it was anyone who set foot in that building would look at it, and it was readily obvious that this was not going to be a good spot that you could just move right in. When you have a ramp inside a building that's an handicap, it's an ADA accessible ramp, and it terminates to a set of 4 stairs, how is that an ADA accessible ramp? That's a true statement. I remember walking down that ramp, and all of a sudden I see 4 stairs. And I'm thinking, are you kidding me? What is going on here? Yeah, there you go. I remember when I broke my ankle, I had to go up the stairs so they could wheel me down the thing, and I could do the stair thing so I could get upstairs. I know, I always have to look on the, Ellen, I thank you very much for that comment, yes. But, it's just one of these things. It was a quirky old building. It was built without probably much of any permitting going on. it was 6 inches from the neighbor's property line, so it was out of code big time. And so now we have a design of a building. We're out still getting prices from people, but we've taken the footprint of the re-envisioned central office with all the positions that we need to add into that building, added into that building, because we have a director of wellness now. We didn't have one of those 10 years ago. You know, our technology director needs to be in central office, not parked up here 10 miles away. We need to have certain people in that office area, and we need to have a human resources department that isn't in the basement of a house that no one can get to who has a disability. That's kind of, you know, a little bit of a problem. You know, the superintendent went to interview a candidate who was in a wheelchair. That's fine. She couldn't get in his office because the office entryway wasn't big enough to allow her to get in his office. So she had to have the interview kind of in the hallway, half in the hallway, half in his office. And even the handicap, the ramp going up to our office, the spec is 1 in 12 as far as pitch and slope, right? There's no way that's 1 in 12. And there's no way the railings are even close to ADA accessible. There's a lot of things that we need to correct with that building, the special services building. In the superintendent's office, special services needs to be in the SAU building. We all need to be together. And those two houses, they have served their useful life, and we have definitely done the New England thing of getting the most money out of anything we can get. We have kept the car running through engine repairs and flat tires and ball joints and everything like that, and it's just too much. So it's a good time. If the community has an appetite for it, so be it. If they don't, that's their decision. We're willing to accept it either way, but at least give us the chance to put it up, and at least let's see what the tone and tenor of the community is going to be with the acceptance of this building. And as I said before, this is not going to be, and if I hear it once, I'm not going to like it. If people start using Taj Mahal like they have with everything else, middle school is a Taj Mahal. The addition to the high school, a 3-story addition, because it had administrative offices where the principal and assistant principal and everything like that sit in, that was a Taj Mahal. Everything we built was a Taj Mahal, you know? We bring in a storage trailer to offset, you know, equipment that we have in the schools to get them out of the schools. Is a storage trailer Taj Mahal? I guess it's Taj Mahal, storage trailer. I don't know. But it's not that. It's, if there is money being spent on this building, it is for the quality of the materials that will last, not last into perpetuity, that will be lasting. You're not going to have to look at repairs. You don't want a lot of recurring cost. It's going to be efficiency of design, and it's going to be quality of the materials and the quality of the construction. So it's something that Merrimack will be proud of. And as part of the project, we would look at the demolition of the blue house and the demolition of the greenhouse. And there will be plans for those two areas, be it parent pickup and drop off, be it different traffic pattern. We're working on that slowly between Keach Nordstrom and VHB to get that done and present a new kind of master plan. So I know I've said a lot and I've taken up a lot of time and I've kind of strayed, but this is my, you know, one chance to get my oar in the water in front of the budget committee and kind of let you guys know what is coming up and what to prepare for, so there's not a lot of surprises. And I know I've said a lot, and I'll just leave it at that right now.
This is your night, Matt. Everything that we
This is
need to
my
know-
night?
Yeah.
I feel like this is like Elvis in the round, right? There's probably some people who don't even know what the heck I'm talking about. They're too young, right? I look over at Naomi. She doesn't know what I'm talking about, right?
She just said I'm older than you.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ellen. You too. Ellen, you don't know what I'm talking about either. This is Elvis when he was thin, you know? It's nice. So anyway, so just, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to take them. I'm just grateful that you allow me to come here and have have a nice conversation with you and just kind of lay out my thoughts and feelings and the information that we have all talked about in central office, you know, with Bill, who's been an awesome superintendent, with Amy Doyle, who's been an awesome assistant superintendent. She has moved this district light years in a very short period of time. I am so impressed with her. It's incredible. And Melissa Faslick, who is our HR director, who is just aces. We've got a good team. And we wanna prove it to you. And so we hope you give us the chance. Thank you.
Golf clap.
Wow.
Lee, did I see you had a question?
Yes, please. Matt, I noticed you went through pretty much all the line items there. I didn't hear you mention something about, in the 24-25 budget, the scoreboards, campus signage?
Yeah,
Could you
the
touch on that, please?
scoreboards, campus signage. We're working with an individual who represents other individuals. They probably won't be in the budget because they may be privately funded, which is pretty cool. Yeah. But we want to get that done. One way or another, we have to replace the scoreboard at the football field because it's broken. So it's going to get done.
That was going to be my next question. I'm not familiar with the scoreboard at the football stadium, so.
No, it's terrible. It's
Yeah.
broken.
Okay.
And so, you know, we can do that for a certain sum of money, let's say 50 grand, or we can go a little bit more modern, which is what perhaps is being proposed for more money, which would really kind of give the Merrimack football field a little bit of pizzazz.
Class it up a little.
Yeah, dress it up a little bit, because,
Getting ready for its
you know,
turf.
huh?
Getting ready for its turf.
Well, you know, I've heard a couple things about turf. It may not, well, you know, there's some studies going on now that, so let's not get into, I don't want to get into a turf field conversation.
Turf war?
Turf war. But if you look at that, when I first got here,
Yeah.
there was a little set of bleachers, there was a little tiny track, there were no lights on the football field, nothing. But we have changed that considerably. That is not a bad-looking area right now. We've just got that ugly duckling of a scoreboard that doesn't work, just like a sore thumb, just sitting there. So that's going to get replaced one way or another. Either it's going to be in the operating budget, or it's going to be something a little more grander that's kind of like a video board, you know, that's going to be funded by other means, not through the general fund operating budget.
Thanks, Matt.
Yep.
Other thoughts or questions? Rachel?
Thank you, Matt, for all the information. Just a clarifying question on the surplus.
Yep.
Is that something that can be retained for multiple years, or is it a one-year retention?
It's, what happens at the end, it's going to go back, but then we can retain it again. So if we don't do anything with the 500 grand, it's gonna go back when we close out our books and we roll everything over, and then we'll have a new fund balance, and then we can retain another amount. It's a little bit different than the way the town works, but it's the same concept. So it's gonna go back, but it can be retained again. If that makes sense. Okay, yeah.
Michelle, did you want to?
Thanks, Matt. You've always got lots of information for us, so,
Yes.
on
You're
how this
welcome.
works. Huh? In good history. In good history, yeah, especially, you know, for those of us that are just up and coming in with our kiddos in the school system, right? You don't know what happened years past, right? So it's good to have that as well when we have some of these budget discussions. I just have a question on the master plan. I know we've
Yep.
discussed this. You know, it came up in multiple conversations last year when we were talking about the budget, and, you know, that you're looking at it and you're talking to people and those type things. Is there anything definitive on that? Like, we will have a master plan drawn up by 2025, or this is something that,
I
is
mean,
there
it's-
some
it's-
sort of date that we're striving for to have that master plan?
Well, I'd like to, we had something done, and then we tore down Brentwood. Then we started talking about central office. And that kind of changed everything. So we put the brakes on, now we have to do a redo. So I'd like to have something done by the, really concrete. There's going to be one section that's going to be done to incorporate a new central office and what to do with blue house, greenhouse, as far as parking lot and traffic. I'm trying to get that done as soon as possible before we start the budget. And then the rest of it is going to be probably another year away. We have really an idea of what we want to do, and we put costing to it, but I want to see what this whole central office, getting rid of the blue house, getting rid of the greenhouse, does and how it affects that, because it could affect that. So
Gotcha.
that's going to be done soon. The other stuff, we're looking at a year away to get that finished up.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then my second question is, we talk a lot about the elementary schools and their capacity, and then the upper L, and then we talk a little bit here and there about the middle school. We don't talk about that as much because it's, relatively new in nature, but we never seem to tap the high school. We never seem to have a conversation about, we talk about all these kids and all the kindergartners and what happened last year with Reeds and stuff like that, and we keep moving, and we know that first grade typically is, but they have to funnel, right? A lot of these kiddos are gonna funnel into the high school, and we seem to, at least from my perception right now, is we don't really have a lot of conversations with, is something we're gonna need something for the high school eventually, or this building, or those type things?
Yeah, the high school enrollments, when I first got here, were around 1,700 kids. And now they're running around 1,145, 1,150, something like that. So this capacity in this building to take care of, I don't want to see a high school with 1,700 kids in this. Because I remember those days. You were walking down the hallway, if you were in a classroom and you were trying to get in the hallway to go in another class, it was kind of like the New York City subway or something like that, you get to jump the line, get in the flow, and keep moving, and hope you could put your blinker on to get in the other lane, to get in the right-hand side of the hallway. So we're looking at, right now, class size at the high school and what we can do. And right now, that bubble that's going on right now is at the elementary schools, but I've seen it move its way to the high school through the elementary school. But it all depends what happens with those higher-end developments like Chestnut Hill with its 75 homes going in. We know those kids are either going to go to the middle school or the high school. So we haven't really focused primarily on space utilization here, but there's a lot of programmatic things going on here to make this high school better.
That was gonna be my next question, is sometimes it's not necessarily about capacity, right?
Right.
And, 1,700 to 11. I went to the high school, or a high school in a nearby town that had 3,000 kids, and getting from A wing to D wing in
Yeah.
5 minutes was a big undertaking,
Yes.
right? With 3,000 kids in moving at the same time. But if it's not a capacity thing and we're not having that issue, then what do we look at from like upgrading things, or looking at things and changing things, or flooring, or, those type things?
Well, we did have, well, it was compliments of the trustees of trust funds. The one thing that this high school had was kind of a tired-looking library, right? Okay. I looked to my library professional over there. And so we did a total remake of the high school library. It's almost cafe-like. You used to walk into the high school library, you went through a set of turnstiles. That's welcoming, isn't it? A set of turnstiles? What are we, buying tickets at Fenway Park in 1952? I mean, what is this? And so that's been taken away. Circulation desk is moved. So there's a lot of things that are going on in the high school to make it more friendly towards the kids and more welcoming. Make it feel less like an institution and more like something that you want to be in. And we found out just by doing the furniture, rearranging things, putting lower stacks in so people could actually see what's going on, that it's really changed the use of the library. So we're looking at each individual space in that manner. How can we make it more comfortable? We've been talking about the cafeteria. You know, years ago, all the tables here used to be those single, you know, the long, narrow tables, you know, like you were in, I don't know, Sing Sing or something like that. They weren't conducive to a good atmosphere. And the round tables being brought in have really helped out. Now, is there certain things we would like to do here to kind of make this a little more inviting, to give it that nice feel? Yeah, there's a lot of things that we've been talking about in this building that are programmatic changes to how we deliver the curriculum, and physically changing certain items to make them more inviting to kids. The band room is one of these things that's on the radar. We want to look at that and make that a lot more agreeable. The little theater is something that, I don't know what to do with that, but that's kind of tied into like the Performing Arts Center, which we talked about a year or so ago, a couple years ago. Because last year, yeah, seems like we've been talking, well, internally we've been talking about it for a little longer than that. We just didn't dare. We wanted you guys to say the words first before we actually said them. But it's been one of these things where it would be really nice to have. And what's the appetite of the community to embark on such an endeavor? And if they do have the appetite for that, where might it go? And so that's a big question, because we know the little theater is just a stopgap measure. You want to have an auditorium or a performing arts center that's going to at least hold half your school capacity at a time. And a little theater, I think, only holds like 270 kids. That's it. But it's not a performing place. This is where all the performances happen, right here in the cafetorium. I don't know who invented that phrase, but I can't stand that phrase. A cafetorium, seriously? But it is what it is, and that seems to be the way things have gone. But yeah, a lot of internal things we're talking about that are kind of on the radar to get done. The library was the first one. We want to look at some of the other areas, like I mentioned, the locker rooms, and it's just not a sports thing. It's a whole different kind of viewpoint on what they should be. And when you look at physical space and facilities, it really can affect student behavior. If you put them in a nice space, a nice comfortable space, and an adult space, they'll have a tendency to kind of rise up their behavior to the environment that they're surrounded in. And so that's what we kind of want to do with kind of a remake of the high school. Because we know that this building here is the culmination of probably 7 different additions over 30 years. So there's no cohesive flow to it. And it's not like it's not like designing a brand new high school with all the latest, thoughts as far as architectural and function and everything like that. You kind of have to make do with the footprint you have. And we've talked about a lot about redoing something in this building to make it more comfortable and more inviting and more mature for the kids, because the kids are mature. And we want to treat them as young adults. And we don't want this to look like just any high school. So, yeah. Yeah.
And there's certainly space to continue to explore those as we talk about the different parts of the budget as we go forward as well. Yeah. Chuck, I think you were next.
I'd really like to compliment the superintendency on the trustful disposition that they have created in the district. It has made all the difference in the world, where the people that are participating in various boards and committees really feel like they are being listened to. And as I heard you, and I know you thought you talked a long time, but there was even more left unsaid. So I know that Matt understated in many respects some of the things that we have lost opportunities on and haven't made the right decisions at the right time. And a certain amount of that, of course, is just the luck of the draw, but it seems that we've stepped on our feet a few times in the last 15 or 20 years, and I can't tell my colleagues here and you, Matt, how happy I am with the remarkable turnaround.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there's so much more work to do, but the work is easier when trust has been established. So I want to thank the superintendency for that. I wondered if you could make a few remarks about the shifting tax rate here in Merrimack.
Yep, obviously tax bills came out. We have less surplus to return than we did last year. That was something that affected the tax rate. We lost $1 million worth of grant money from the state adequacy education fund. Do I really want to go there? I'm going to go there a little bit. That adequacy formula and the way they back into the number has been a point of contention for me and for everybody in my position ever since the Claremont lawsuit. It's not equitable. It seems to be arbitrary and capricious sometimes when you look at the way things are distributed. The Department of Ed can say, oh, well, Merrimack just got another $5 million in aid, but they reduced the amount of the grant, but they increased the amount of the state education income tax, which is Merrimack money. So it's all a shell game. And I talked to some of my contemporaries who are kind of a little bit new to this game, trying to explain it to them, that fourth line on your tax bill doesn't go anywhere. That's not paid for by anybody else. That's paid for by the people in your town. So there's a lot of stuff that needs to happen. So there was that going on, lost in some state aid, even though one could make a statement that aid to education has increased, but you got to look what pot the money comes from to understand how it affects you. So that hurt us. And then from what I've heard in talking with the town, there's been a shift in the net assessed valuation of single-family homes vis-a-vis commercial, industrial, and retail. This has happened before with condos. Commercial, industrial, retail has decreased in value. Homes, single-family homes, the people that are our neighbors, the people that we talk to, they have gone up. So they have saddled an increasing share of the tax burden when compared to commercial and industrial property. So you combine those three things, a little less surplus, loss in state aid. We did have a budget increase, but it's like 1.9%. It wasn't that big. And then the shift in the tax responsibility from commercial, industrial, retail to single-family homes, because single-family homes in the last year or so have gone up an astronomical amount. You know, I look at my net assessed valuation, I just laugh. I says, I wouldn't pay this much money for this house. What, are you kidding me? But they have gone up astronomically. So that's part of the issue. There's a lot of moving parts to a tax rate. I can't talk specifically to assessed valuation, but I do know that that's a fact, because that's what was told to me.
Watch this space, right? Watch this space.
Yes, right, yeah, exactly.
Any other thoughts or questions, please?
I have a thought. Well, I just wanted to expand on Matt's wonderful presentation about the new administration office. The school board, we've been talking about this. We are 100% unanimously in favor of doing this, or getting it on the ballot and convincing the voters that this is not only the right time, but also necessary. Our last meeting, we had the chair of the Planning and Building Committee come and present to us, Rich Hendricks, and I wish I brought my notes where I wrote it down. He started his presentation with an amazing list of like things that are wrong with the current buildings, which are like the reason why we need the new ones. It was like safety and confidentiality, and there was like 7 or 8 things. It was really good. We're talking about, so he was talking about the members of the Planning and Building Committee going out into the community and doing presentations and getting voters on board with why this is necessary and why now is the right time to do it. The school board is talking about forming another ad hoc committee of community members to go out into the community and educate people on why this is not only necessary, but the right time to do it. We've been talking about working together, and we've basically all said we're all hands on deck for this, to get this done this year. So we would appreciate the budget committee's support as well, and we're really looking forward to seeing the final plans of like, we've seen the draft sort of plan of what the building will look like and what the space will look like, but we're looking forward to seeing it finalized, and we're looking forward to seeing what the numbers are going to be like. And so yeah, I just wanted to put that plug out there.
Thank you very much. Chuck?
I move that the Budget Committee support the new SAU facility as proposed by the school board.
Yeah, I'm not sure what has there been a specific proposal yet?
Nothing concrete to my knowledge, other than that we're going to put one on the ballot this coming ballot cycle. So,
Anybody care to second my motion? Or?
Yeah. I second that.
Excellent. Discussion? Chuck?
Well, we've talked about a lot of things for any number of years, and none of what we heard tonight is new information. And so if not now, when? If not us, who? We just heard our representative say that they would appreciate having the support of the Budget Committee in making a proposal for a new SAU building. And thus I kept my motion somewhat short and abbreviated so as to avoid any specific detail, but that we support the school board's unanimous decision to move forward with a new SAU facility on the warrant.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Rachel?
So I think all of us from last year too, right? And this discussion's been around since last year. We had, a pretty detailed discussion on it. I think, as Matt said, it's been a discussion for at least 10 years, 15 years. I would just say that I think while there's support in, the idea of this, I would like to see the information actually come forth from either the administration or the school board, just so that we have the knowledge of what is being presented to us first.
Other comments?
I think I want to add on to what Rachel was saying. I guess I'm of that same mindset too. I'm not necessarily sure what it is that I'm voting on. They want to put it on the ballot. I completely understand why and what they want to put on the ballot. And is that what we're voting, that we'll stand behind the school board to put it on the ballot? Or, like Rachel said, I think for me to vote on something that's not that, it hasn't been a part of the discussion, and it's not that, like, some of us have actually had detailed discussions and what our opinions and those things are, but I'm not sure that we would be voting on that particularly right now without all of the dollars and cents and pieces and scheduling. And
Would you like to make an amendment to the motion?
It feels
I
like
don't-
we're voting on sentiment
Right.
instead of solid facts.
Okay,
So
thank
we
you,
can
Ellen.
state for the record that we support them, but I think everyone's having a problem kind of grasping what we're actually voting on, because there's been no proposed warrant or plan other than the discussion of it. So you have our support. I'll give you that, but I don't see anything to vote on either.
Any other comments? Any other discussion? Jack, do you have thoughts on ways to change the language based on that, or would you like to stay with? Do you have thoughts on changes to the language you might wish to make based on the feedback, or would you like to leave it as is?
Let me try and clarify the original motion. I move that the Budget Committee support the school district's school board unanimous decision to put a new SAU proposal before the voters on the warrant this year.
Rachel?
I'm sorry. There has not been something set forth in front of the community. Is that correct?
So we haven't had a proposal with like the exact numbers of what it's going to cost. Matt's told you. Can you clarify that some, Matt? Because we don't have like the 3 bids that we're going to have for this construction work in front of us, but we have decided that we are going to get those bids, and we have decided that we're going to figure out how the bond is going to be arranged, and we have decided that all of that is going to be on the ballot, and that we have decided that we're going to form these committees, and we're going to go out and we're going to do outreach and educate on why this is necessary. And so this is a thing that we are going to do, but no, we don't have like, this is what it's going to cost, other than Matt was saying we have estimates.
We do have estimates, but we don't have all the boats have not come into harbor yet, so we're waiting on that to make them public. But you are pursuing this. And so you took a vote to pursue central office, not to approve it yet, because you haven't got all the information. So maybe it's like the Budget Committee approves the board's decision to pursue central office on the upcoming, whatever.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah.
Shane?
On the building, planning and building committee, we do have like preliminary stuff. And it's been discussed for meetings, and it's actually going forward. So I think Chuck's point was, now that things are happening, let's just make sure we're all on the same page with just keeping it going. I think that was all it was.
Like, state for the record, we support them in this pursuit.
Yeah.
But there's really nothing to vote on.
In spirit.
Yeah.
Behind the board.
But we could make a record statement, for the record.
It's
that-
a show. It's a show.
Well, it's nice when all-
show support.
Right.
Yeah, that's
Everybody's all aligned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could I ask for an amendment?
Always, yes. We had some language that people were nodding to. Who wants to state that?
Now that it's been explained, I think, are we good?
We still need the exact language for the minutes,
Yeah.
because it's a motion.
Same one. What he said. We're still good.
No.
No,
not
the
the
most
same
recent
one.
one,
Do you want to add something like we support the school board's pursuit of the
that word.
New
That's the word.
central office.
Because there's been no proposal to vote
Correct.
support of.
Right.
This is a sentimental, like a sentiment of spirit of support vote.
We know they're pushing me, and the Planning and Building Committee is pushing me, so we approved Matt being pushed to get this going, so. But the pursuit, that's what they're doing.
Would you also be interested in voting on?
Can we have an amendment?
Yeah.
We're working on it, Chuck.
We're working on it.
The pursuit, I think, was part of it, but also,
An
Perhaps-
amendment. We need an
Well,
amendment.
that's what
Can-
she's
can I
working on.
finish?
She has more to add to the amendment.
perhaps support of the fact that it is necessary and a good time to pursue it.
That language is also good.
Okay,
Yep.
shall I
It-
give it a
it-
try? Go for it, Shane.
So based on everything we've discussed tonight, I believe what Chuck is saying, that taking into account that we already have budgeted bond money that we're not going to use. We've been working on this for 30 years. Everybody's in alignment now and realize that it's necessary for the teachers that we need to get on board, for everything else that Matt outlined. Chuck, I believe, was saying that we're all in agreement that we are excited and supporting of the school board's pursuit to get a proposal for this SAU.
And Naomi wants to add in necessary proposal.
Already said
that. Okay. I just want it like 12 times.
So
in
we
there.
have a second for the amendment?
I'll second the amendment.
Call the question?
Okay, the question has been called. We don't have to do that, but I think that we're at a point where we can. Is everybody comfortable with that? Yeah, okay. So let's vote. Can we hear the motion again? Did you get it?
Which one?
The last one,
And which version?
yes.
And which word from this person and that person and this person? I don't have,
Yeah, you couldn't take it down that quickly. One moment.
taking into account, it is necessary, what I got out of everything, if you, and I apologize because I'm not a member of the committee, but if you'd like to recite it again.
I'm not going to recite it, but I'm going to ask a clarifying question of, because last year I remember something similar where somebody made a motion, we couldn't amend that motion unless we voted no to that, and then, or the person who made the motion could make the amendment.
So
No,
that-
that's not
That
true.
was my
Okay.
preference at the time.
Okay.
Ultimately, the committee doesn't work under any specific
Okay,
set
I
of
just wanted to
rules.
make sure of that, because I remember that was a whole thing too last year.
And so we have a bit of space for that, which we
Okay.
talked through afterwards.
Thank you.
Yes. So at the moment, my goal is to have process lead us to having a motion that respects Chuck's original purpose and allows us to state our support for the activities that the school board is engaging in. So that's what my goal is that we reach that point.
If I can,
Mhm.
Chuck's original motion way back was to support the school board's unanimous decision to put a new SAU on the warrant. And that's what I've been hearing from everybody. It was the decision to put the SAU on the warrant.
To pursue.
I think the pursuit
Putting
is
the
right.
SAU on the
Right, the
warrant.
pursuit needs to be in there.
For
What are they
necessary.
pursuing?
The problem that keeps coming up here is the idea that people might be, and I share this, by the way, that we might be essentially voting to do something ahead of the time when we have all the facts about it.
Yes.
And so the goal here is to voice support for this action, this pathway, without presuming to have a final vote on something we haven't talked about yet. Chuck?
30 years in pursuing this does not make tonight premature.
If we don't have numbers, then I
Well, if
cannot
we don't have
on
the
it.
vote, we don't have the vote. That's all there is to it. That's up to my colleagues in the committee to do as they wish. I stepped forward with something that I thought was important and gave direction to the school board and to the superintendency. I'm not the least bit timid about supporting it, and quite frankly, I'm bewildered that others are.
You have solicited amendments to it, and that's why we're still talking about it. There's no intention to step on your language if you wish to use your original language.
We haven't heard an amendment yet.
We've had several proposed.
We've had a lot of conversation. Nobody has actually said, I move, this is my motion to amend.
I move to amend Chuck's original statement to include the word pursuit. Is that good and necessary?
Yes.
We
thank you.
need the full
All we're
language.
doing, all this is just supporting the proposal. So
get
once we
it,
get
yeah.
the proposal in, then we can work out all these details. This is just a proposal.
I need the full sentence. I can't move to add a word.
What
Is
does
it
it
the
say? What is her-
proposal? Is it the proposal you're supporting, or is it the decision
The proposal.
to pursue?
Yeah, the decision to pursue a proposal. Because of a necessary need.
Alrighty.
You might need it.
If I have the wording right, his motion is to support the school board's decision to pursue a proposal to put a new SAU on the ballot next spring. Because, you're right, I hadn't finished writing necessary. Because of a necessary, and you said another word too. Okay, necessary and immediate, there's,
Okay. Did everybody hear the current wording of the motion? Is there any further discussion of the motion? Rachel?
Yes, I'm being technical on this. Does it matter, the word proposal versus proposals? Just because we're having the sentiment of you guys pursuing that entire process. Okay. Okay. Okay.
Because our goal is to put forward a proposal eventually, so.
While we're in discussion, my thoughts, just on this piece. It sounds to me like it does not have language that locks us into having made a budgetary decision, but voices support for the idea, and so this would have, I intend to vote in favor of it.
I'm going to abstain only because I'm not going to vote to support myself. Really?
Okay, I'm going to close comments if nobody else has anything. All those in favor of the motion as it stands, please raise your hand or say aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you very much. The motion passes. Chuck?
I move that we ask the school board to put a performing arts center on the capital improvement program and to create a capital reserve funding mechanism to accumulate funds for that purpose.
Is there a second? Shane? Is there any discussion? Yeah.
The school board is doing a lot of forward-thinking planning right now, like a lot. We're working on addressing curriculum issues. We're working on addressing the SAU building. We're in the middle of a strategic planning process. There's a strategic planning committee that's meeting a couple of times a month for the next 6 months that's going to sort of chart our course for the next 3 to 5 years. We've been having our annual goal-setting meetings where we set the goals for the district for the next 18 months or so, and the subject of a performing arts center has come up several times. This year, actually, in the goal-setting meeting, one of our goals was around facilities, and the kind of two main things that changed in our facilities goals from last year were we resolved, and this was back in June, we resolved that we were going to pursue the SAU building this year and get it on the warrant. And we resolved that we were going to start exploring the possibility of a performing arts center. So like reaching feelers out into the community and kind of looking at our space and, you know, thinking, okay, what is this going to cost? But we're talking like down the road, because there's a lot of things. I get that this committee has been hearing that from a lot of people on a lot of boards for a lot of years, and I don't want you to feel like I'm one more person saying, no, don't worry, we'll get to it eventually, because that's not my intention at all. I want to assure you that it is on our radar, but that our priorities this year are really SAU building and making sure we have adequate staffing levels and academic outcomes for students. So that's the kind of the school board's position on the whole.
What have I proposed that is inconsistent with any of that?
I worry that by placing kind of this much focus on it, it will detract from the very real outreach we're going to need to get this SAU building done.
I agree with that. And we put a line item in the budget last year of $10, so it is on their radar, but we have more important things to focus on, including the academics of our students.
Well, I couldn't disagree more, actually. I'm sorry that you feel that way. Call the question.
I'm not going to call the question in that format at the moment. We have more comments that people wanted to make.
The reason I seconded it, and I agree 100%, and I'm definitely agreeing that the SAU is 100% important and necessary right now, but we go 5 years out, and I think Matt actually has an extended 8-year or 10-year one. To Chuck's point, not to put words in his mouth, but I'd love to just see it on there so that we just have visibility to it, just to avoid the 30-year delay that we've seen on some other items. Just visibility. Don't dig in yet, just visibility, start budgeting, start getting interest, is why I seconded it.
So for me, this is premature. At the December meeting is when we hear from the board and we hear the strategic plan. We hear the details of what they're hoping to prioritize and not, and to address these kinds of pieces. I would be considering such a motion personally in terms of my vote after that discussion, but not before, because I don't know where all the pieces fall yet.
Well, I have to remind everyone that this is not the school board. This is the budget committee. And all the motion said was to ask the school board a courteous deference in the conduct of their business. The other school board members might very well welcome such a motion. We don't know. But I never have any trouble taking the high ground. So it's up to my colleagues to vote as their conscience tells them best.
Usually the order of operations, how things get on the capital improvement plan, is administration starts out and they build the CIP as they hear input from everybody. Then it goes to the school district planning and building committee. Then they take a look at it and they, revise it, move it, whatever. And then it goes to the school board. So the administration could very well put a line that says Performing Arts Center, because it is one of the school board's goals and objectives in the future, and put it on the CIP and then bring it in front of the planning and building committee to give it some visibility. I think you just looking for some recognition in a formal document that it was discussed, so when we look back 10 years from now, we're talking about the Performing Arts Center, that there was some recognition that it was on an official document at some point in time and reviewed by the Planning and Building Committee, and if they approve it to go forward, even with a date 8 years out or something like that, or maybe just a to be determined next to it. You know, it can be there, and it can be, you know, memorialized in a history that it was done and it was talked about. So I know what you're talking about, Mr. Moore. I know what your goal
vote on
is.
Are we good for a vote? Rachel?
Pat, would you mind rereading the question, please, or the motion?
The motion was to ask the school board to put the Performing Arts Center on the capital improvement plan and to create a capital reserve fund for that purpose.
I can't, again, not as chair, but from my perspective, I can't ask for that at this point in the budget process. It's far too early in terms of what we might or might not put money towards. I don't mind being, the capital improvement plan is one thing, but that asks specifically for financial pieces as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree with you there. I think it's a little preemptive, Chuck. I see the spirit of the language, and I applaud the motion. But again, I think it's a little preemptive without more input from the whole budget a little later in our sessions, that I would agree with Naomi, that it's just not the time now to do that.
I've spent most of my life in Merrimack hearing that now is not the time. And that's a decision that the town makes. That's a decision that the Budget Committee makes. For me, this is the time. I just recently celebrated my 75th birthday, being a native of Merrimack. So I have a rich history of what has and hasn't happened here in town. And I will never see a performing arts center. I fully realize that. But I'd like to think that somebody at least measured the idea in writing.
Are we ready for a vote? Rachel?
Thank you. I'll just say one more thing. So I think maybe if the sentiment of the motion maybe were changed to include it in the out years of the capital improvement plan, and maybe some more detail of, I don't know if studies have been done, or even like that level of detail, but that would almost be the first steps rather than just hopping to put on the capital improvement plan and create capital reserve. So I think that's the part that maybe many of us are feeling is the hard part of this, rather than, you know, again, supporting seeing it somewhere in the out years on that capital improvement
Do I hear
plan.
a motion?
I'm sorry?
Do I hear a motion?
We already have a motion?
Yes, there.
Yes. A motion to amend.
Yeah, I can amend the motion if you'd like. So I would amend the motion to request that the administration and school board look to see when the right time would be to put the Performing Arts Center somewhere in the out years on the capital improvement plan.
Does this continue to meet? Chuck, does this meet what you had in mind?
I'm looking for a second.
Discussion. As amended. I'm of the opinion that we need to move to vote and be done with this. With all respect for these pieces and wishing to have the discussion continue as long as people want to do it, I think that this is not the appropriate night to be having these conversations yet. These are not decisions we can make at this point. And I think that the committee needs to speak one way or the other as to whether or not we're passing these types of motions by having a vote. Yes.
Point of order.
Chuck.
Any public meeting is an appropriate time for any public official to make a motion.
My suggestion
You
was...
as chairman cannot unilaterally declare that this isn't the time.
I was saying, I will restate it so that it is clear, that I believe these conversations, that there should be a vote in order to bring these conversations to resolution. I was not suggesting the motion should not occur, nor that a vote should not occur. I was expressing the sentiment that I think we need to take a position and move on. We can entertain as many motions as people want to bring forward. Are there any other comments or discussion? Can we hear the motion?
Usually, you vote on the amendment and then the amended motion. An amendment was proposed to add the language, request administration and school board look to see what the right time in some of the out years on the KIP. That was when, and you want me to, so are we adding that to the original motion?
I believe it contradicts the original motion. I think it's one or the other, which is why it's my preference that we rescind motions before doing amendments, but that's...
Oh, well, his motion wasn't rescinded, his
Yeah.
motion was amended, so there's a difference.
Mhm. Give it a moment. Are they in contradiction?
All right, the original motion. Ask the school board to put the Performing Arts Center on the KIP and create a CRF, or Capital Reserve Fund for that purpose. And you're looking to add and put it on the KIP in some outlying years, but you added in language that you wanted about see what the right time is. And you also said the administration as well as the school board.
Right, so I didn't realize the amendment went on the original motion, so can I rescind my amendment at this point?
You can.
Okay, I will rescind my amendment.
I would like to suggest, this is not a chairperson order of any sort, I'm going to suggest we vote on the original motion. Seeing no discussion, let us vote on the original motion. Just to be perfectly clear, has everybody heard the language recently enough to know what we are voting on? Yes. All those in favor of the motion that is currently put forward, please indicate by saying aye and or raising your hand. Thank you. All opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you very much. Are there any further questions or discussion for Matt? Okay. Now, we had one other item that was going to go forward, and that was talking about the formats of information, how we might want it. Unless there is sentiment against it, I think we should postpone that bit. We have a little bit more to do, and it's beginning to stretch a little later. So we'll move that piece to the upcoming agenda. Okay. The next piece, thank you very much, Matt.
I was going to say, mind dismissed? Thank you.
You are welcome to stay. You are free to go.
Thank you very much. I
Thank you,
appreciate
Matt.
I appreciate you guys. It's always fun talking to you, seriously.
Mhm.
Thank you, Matt.
Shane, when the Planning and Building Committee discusses the capital improvement plan,
I have
just bring it up and we'll put it in. I mean, that's
Okay,
it.
we have two more items.
So all of us didn't have to.
We have two more items. The next one is what I'm going to call site visits. We have been having a retooling of liaison or potential retooling of the liaison teams back towards their original purpose from my perspective. Over the last number of years, it has seemed to me that the liaison teams have shifted away from a tradition of seeing the site, looking at the school, learning about the place itself that we're talking about, and partly pushed by COVID has moved primarily to a kind of rehearsal of the same presentation that we get in this meeting. And while that has certain value, I think that there is greater value to be had in restoring it to its site visit potential. So in discussion with administration, we identified, what I'm suggesting we do this year is we identified 5 dates. They are Thursdays and Tuesdays for the 7 o'clock slot. Tomorrow afternoon, I believe, sometime tomorrow, is there are administrative meetings where I don't know who's going to be there, but the people necessary to make this decision within the district will be there, and they will choose days for the sites. So the idea is this: we have certain Thursdays and Tuesdays at 7. Those are our times when we usually know people are mostly free. The sites will choose which of those work for them. We'll have 2 or 3 options per day, and you go where you would like to go. And you have a tour of the space, you have a chance to talk with the people and do those particular pieces. There is no chair, there is no leader to the group, because this is an invitation to visit a site. It is not a subcommittee of the budget committee. Does that difference make sense?
So it's an all-committee visit.
Well, since there'll be 3 or so sites per night, yes, since there are 3 or so sites per night, I would anticipate 3 or 4 people per space. We may want to kind of finagle it so that it works out that way, but if it does hit quorum at 1, we can call it as a public meeting and go forward with it in that format if we need to. But it is not a meeting, it is an opportunity to visit a site and tour it. Rachel?
What happens if you end up with 0 people at one of the sites? So is there a way to pre-coordinate to ensure that there's coverage for all sites?
So in upcoming years, I would like to do this much easier, much earlier. It ended up very tight, and we had to choose between staying with the original format or beginning to try this evening format. It would have been my preference to have the sites assigned and you signing up for them tonight, but that wasn't possible. So instead, what I thought we would do is get a general sense of whether the times work, whether this idea works, and then we will let you know which sites are available when that information comes forward. Michelle?
So can I just clarify? I think you just answered my question, but we will not know when these site visits are scheduled, whether it's in our purview for the budget that we'll be looking at this year.
I don't understand the question.
The schools that we're selected to be a part of, right? We won't know.
You won't be
is that-
selected.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm trying to get rid of
Okay.
this kind of informal, I choose where everybody goes.
Gotcha. Okay.
So the idea is that once you know where the sites, when each site has availability, and if you too are available, you go.
Okay.
So these will be scheduled after the budget books are out?
They're going to be scheduled, well, the dates that we have in mind, I'll pass this around so you can each take it, and if you'd like to indicate whether this works, that's fine, are December dates. So they're the Tuesdays and Thursdays in December when we do not meet. So the 5th, the 7th, the 14th, and the 19th. The goal is to have the site visits done before we begin our discussions.
And then we're not having those small people groups per school.
Correct.
Thank you. That's what I was.
Yes.
So when is the appropriate time to ask those specific school administrators about their budget requests if we're not having small subcommittee meetings?
Some of that conversation will move back into the public meeting, and some of it will be questions that you can ask if you attend the site visit.
But we won't have the budget books before the site visit.
When you say the budget books, in this case, we're talking about the budget request from the school board. We'll have that when they get it to us. We might not have it in January. We will have access to the administrative request.
And they'll know.
And they'll know,
They'll know what
yes.
they're asking.
There is gain and loss in this, there is no question.
Yeah, I'm focused on the loss, minimal gain, and then the gain of additional time to discuss those once all the material is available at the subsequent meetings in January.
Well, again, there's no requirement for you to go to these.
No, I understand. What I'm saying is it's going to create more discussion in the open public forum versus here's this committee, this is what we went through, this is what we're focusing on. That's what I foresee, but that's just me.
So there's a gray space. There are a lot of reasons why this began to come together in this direction. It may be a terrible one. We have to try ideas, and sometimes they're good ideas, sometimes they're really, really not, and that's fine with me. But there is a gray space in terms of the liaison teams and the way they have worked. And that is whether or not they are subcommittees, and if they are, whether or not those should be public meetings.
I understand that.
So if we leave them as liaison teams, we're going to have to answer those questions.
So
Shane.
have we accounted for potentially longer meetings in January, February-ish?
Yes, but we have more already scheduled, so we should be fine. Rachel?
So do you foresee this, so last year being the first year, I felt like I heard the same conversations and questions 3 to 4 times. Do you see this cutting back on the redundancy of those same conversations and just having it be a more effective, so maybe longer meetings, but maybe we're not hearing the same info?
No, you're gonna hear the same info because the schools ask for the same things, right?
No,
And
but
you
when I
go
say, like, we
through
heard
it
it from the
all.
school board meeting, and then we heard it in our subcommittee meetings, and then they presented here, and it was the same presentation
You're just gonna
every
all hear it
time.
at once.
So I think that's,
Yeah, you're just gonna all hear it at once instead of, 9 times.
Jennifer, did you have a question?
I see you, Shane.
Yes, I voiced the same original concern that Rachel had, which is that we will have some sites that are not represented if we don't pre-coordinate. So I feel like the pre-coordinating is really a key piece. And then also, I agree that it seems like there is more efficiency in having a smaller group do the hashing out of the details with the individual sites and then report that back to the larger group. Whether you want to do that as subcommittees or how you want to do that is, I'm not weighing in there per se, but I do think those two pieces are important.
No, I agree, and I appreciate hearing this. We can certainly stay with the liaison structure. If we do that, from my perspective and my reading of statute, we need to post those as public minuted meetings. There have to be minutes taken. There has to be a way for the public to access this. And all of those pieces need to be in place as well. So we can tackle it in either direction. We can either, and we probably cannot do the full site visit because there are problems with opening up school sites to the public in that way, in the evening, and security and things of that sort. So we've got to decide which way we want to go on this one. My preference is for what I'm suggesting, but I'm not, it won't hurt my feelings either way.
Well, we don't know until we try, right?
Michelle?
I just have a comment on the liaison ones. I think if we ended up going back towards that, then I think there needs to be some discussion about the parameters or information that's discussed within all, because I found that last year that different things were discussed in different meetings, or the liaison asked different questions, right? So when we came to do it as a group or what have you, one school was about one thing and one school was about another, and there was no continuity to be able to make some of the questions or discussions or.
Okay.
So we're just gonna have to state which ones we're interested in when the site visit schedule is released, and then somebody's gonna have to say, yeah, that's enough people, that's not enough people, who's gonna go here.
My guess is it's going to work out pretty easily based on where people want to go. If it does go over a number that would be problematic, we can look at dividing it into 2 different people, 2 different groups, things of that sort. If a site has no interest, then unfortunately, apparently that's the interest of the committee.
And how do you handle like food service that's multiple sites?
Food service chooses what they want us to visit.
Perfect. All right. Good, I got it.
Okay?
I
food services.
I think the way you, and we've discussed it in the way, I think I would support that, to move forward with the new way of doing it this year. And if it, like you said, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, then we try again next year, right? So.
Thank you. Is there anybody who has strong reservations regarding trying this out this year? Okay, thank you. I'll pass around this sheet. It has the dates on it because I know I said them quickly. This is not a commit to that date. Ellen, is your hand half up?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay, go.
So I know that it's optional for the site visits, but I personally, if you're going to be a member of this committee,
Yes.
do not feel that it should be optional, and that if you cannot make at least a majority of some visit, and that if you're not going to be available, that you share that. That's just my own personal opinion. I think that you should have to go to at least one or more sites, because that's what you're expected as your public service, so that you can have those discussions when we have the open discussions.
Thank you. I cannot,
that's it.
I cannot require people to
I
do
know.
much of anything, but I agree entirely with the sentiment that this is part of one's job and one's responsibility as an elected official. Yes.
What are you doing if you're not doing that?
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm just saying it out loud.
Okay, so I will send around this piece of paper. You can see the dates on it. If you are interested, this is not a commitment, but I would be interested to know who thinks they are free on these days. Feel free to jot down if you are, just to give me a sense of it, or not, if you don't have your calendars with you. And as soon as I have knowledge of which sites can host on what nights, I will transmit that onward to the group. Okay? Let's start it around this way, and then it can come on back. Here you go.
Christmas party on the 19th.
Okay, we have one more fun thing to do tonight. So, for those, let's see. Let me mention the next meeting we have, the public meeting is on December 12th. Let us do a nod in the direction of public participation. There is no one from the public here, so we are going to close the public participation. Are there any broader comments before we discuss non-public? Yes.
I have one quick comment. Last meeting, you brought forward the definition of terms and the process for the
Yes.
budget, and I was asked my opinion and mentioned that I had not had a chance to discuss it with the school board. That discussion had actually happened at the school board meeting right before that I had missed. And yes, they did discuss the terms, and the terms were all agreeable, and so everyone is now, we've agreed that we're using the same process and the same language, so I just wanted to circle back on that.
Thank you very much for closing that particular loop. Other comments from the committee before we move to discussing what a non-public is and moving to non-public? Okay. If you look in your lovely packets, you have a piece of paper that has yellow highlighting on it. For those who are not familiar with the concept, non-public sessions are a particular type of meeting, or part of a meeting, rather, under statute. And what they're intended to do is allow formal meetings to take place that are taken place outside of the public view, because we have very specific, as we've talked about, regulations, and good ones, regarding business that we have to do in public. They're done in a specific way, which is outlined here, specifically through a motion, which is seconded, and then a roll call vote. They can only be called for specific reasons, mostly that have to do with protecting the privacy of individuals whose privacy should be protected, such as minors, certain things to do with employees. It has to do with, and the one that we will evoke tonight has to do with if one's talking about something that is held in confidence, such as counsel, and pieces of that kind. What we do is I make a motion, or anybody who wishes to, but I plan to do it this evening. If it is seconded, we will do a roll call vote in favor or against. Assuming that there is a positive outcome to that motion, the cameras and microphones will be turned off, and we will be speaking without being on that record. Minutes are taken, and those minutes are, or are not, depending on the outcome, but by default, I believe, are sealed and do exist. They can be unsealed at future times under certain circumstances.
No, they're not sealed unless this body seals them.
Okay.
The default is they're public.
Okay, so we hold the non-public, we choose whether or not those minutes are sealed while we're in the non-public? So correct me, tell me the process.
Into public.
Okay, so we go into non-public, hold the conversation, go back into public, and then make our minutes decision in terms of sealing or not sealing. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So it's essentially no risk. If we have the conversation, it turns out they don't need to be sealed, we just don't seal them, and they move forward. Is there anything else I left out or misstated on that one? Anyone on that piece? I want to get it right. Chuck?
I move that we enter non-public session according to RSA dash A, colon, 3, parentheses, 1, close parentheses.
91A.
That's what I said?
Yes.
I don't have my glasses.
You missed the 91, Chuck.
91A,
According to RSA 91, yeah.
As written.
Okay.
As written. Thank you very much, Chuck. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. We had several possibilities. We're going with, I believe, Mackenzie. Okay, I believe we do a roll call vote.
Lee?
Present.
Michelle? Present is actually, there are people that vote present, which is neither for or against, so I just
In
took it as
favor,
present.
thank you.
Thank you. Michelle Mackey?
Yes.
Chuck Mower?
Aye.
Rachel?
Yes.
Ellen?
Yes.
Shane?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
Mackenzie?
Yes.
Naomi Schoenfeld?
Yes.
And Naomi Halter?
Yes.
It's unanimous.
I'm going to make a motion that we seal the minutes from the non-public session. I am going to do that so that people can vote on it. Please understand, I am fine either way. It depends on your sensibilities for what was discussed. So I'm going to move that we seal the minutes. Is there a second? Thank you. Do we discuss? Do we need to discuss? No, we've discussed enough tonight. Let us go to a vote, and it is not a roll call vote, correct? It is a roll call vote. Okay.
Minutes and decisions received in non-public session shall be publicly disclosed within 72 hours unless by the recorded vote of 2/3 of the members taken in public session.
Thank you.
Naomi Halter?
So the vote, the motion was to seal them?
A yes is to seal, a no is not to seal.
No.
Okay. Ellen?
Nope.
Rachel?
No.
Jennifer?
No.
Naomi Schoenfeld?
No.
Chuck?
No.
Shane?
No.
Lee?
No.
Michelle Mackey?
No.
Mackenzie?
No.
Oh, and that's everybody. The 3 spaces are the people that are absent. So, motion failed.
Thank you very much. Shall we have a motion to adjourn? Ellen?
I'll second.
Second. There we go. We got thirds and fourths and fifths. All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Point of order?
Yes, sir.
Adjournment does not require a vote. The chairman can declare adjournment.
Thank you. I think, I will remember that in future. I think in this case, people enjoyed being a part.
So it was unanimous?